What if I told you there's a real chance Max Verstappen will drive for Mercedes next season? That's right, the three-time world champion could be packing his bags for Brackley. And this move would not only change Red Bull's fortunes, but also place prodigy Kimi Antonelli in a completely unexpected role, racing for Alpine as part of a bold grid restructuring plan. The 2025 F1 season, which has already started full of surprises, is about to take on the feel of a soap opera, with mysterious contract clauses, behind-the-scenes negotiations, and even meetings between Toto Wolff and Flavio Briatore. So stay until the end of the video to understand these speculations. Like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any more Formula One news. It all starts with a rumor. Max Verstappen, the three-time world champion, may actually leave Red Bull to race for Mercedes in 2026. The idea, which once sounded like social media fan fiction, is now being discussed among serious journalists, in international reports, and even in the quiet corridors of the teams. According to sources, Verstappen has a performance clause in his contract that can be activated starting with the 2025 Hungarian Grand Prix. What does this mean? Simple. If Red Bull isn't among the top three teams in the championship by that race, Max will have the contractual freedom to leave the team, without having to pay huge termination fees. This detail has been confirmed by several journalists with internal access to Red Bull, and although Christian Horner and Helmut Marko have tried to downplay the issue publicly, the subtext of their interviews suggests there's more truth to it than they're willing to admit. And, let's face it, Red Bull's performance this year isn't at the dominant level we saw between 2021 and 2023. There's instability, there's pressure, and there is growing dissatisfaction. But why would Max Verstappen consider leaving a team that took him to the top of Formula One? The answer lies not only in his on-track performance, but also behind the scenes. Since the scandal involving Christian Horner at the beginning of the season, and even after he was officially cleared, the atmosphere within Red Bull has never been the same. According to journalist Mark Hughes, there is a latent internal conflict, mainly between Horner and Red Bull's Austrian management, which reached its peak with rumors that Jos Verstappen, Max's father, would demand drastic changes or encourage his son to seek new horizons. And amid this turmoil, a name emerges: Toto Wolff. Yes, the Mercedes boss confirmed in an interview with Sky Sports that he had talks with Verstappen. According to him, there hasn't been any kind of agreement yet, but the door is open. And more than that, Wolff made it clear that Mercedes has a real interest in hiring the Dutchman starting in 2026, when the new generation of engines will enter Formula One. And that changes everything. Mercedes has been investing heavily in the development of its new power unit, and rumors suggest they are even ahead of the competition with a more efficient and reliable power unit than the one being developed by Red Bull powertrains in partnership with Ford. This technical difference could weigh heavily on Verstappen's decision, as he has stated on other occasions that he is not in Formula One to fight for occasional podiums, but rather for titles. Let's get to the facts. In 2026, Formula One will undergo one of the biggest regulatory changes in recent memory. The cars will feature a new aerodynamic design, lighter and more agile, with 50% of their power coming from electric motors and fully sustainable fuels. And do you know what this means? That the team's current performance isn't necessarily indicative of what's to come. And that's precisely where the Mercedes factor becomes dangerous for rivals. An interesting quote from former driver Johnny Herbert, who said he believed Max could indeed leave Red Bull, simply because he didn't trust the team's ability to deliver a competitive engine in partnership with Ford. That's right. Red Bull Powertrains, which is developing its own engine for the first time, has no track record or proven experience in building a power unit from scratch, especially in a scenario as complex as the new 2026 regulations. On the other hand, Mercedes has a legacy of hybrid dominance since 2014 and a consolidated infrastructure that has inspired confidence over the last decade. Verstappen, therefore, would be seeking technical security, a reliable project with high potential and no surprises. And the concern about Red Bull isn't just theoretical. Internally, there are reports that engine development is behind schedule and that there are doubts about how the team will handle the integration of the new engine with the chassis, in addition to the natural difficulty of aligning work with Ford engineers, who have different cultures, paces, and performance visions. For a driver like Verstappen, who doesn't want to experience the ups and downs he experienced at Red Bull between 2015 and 2019. This uncertainty weighs heavily. The Dutchman doesn't want to take risks. He wants to be on the team with the greatest potential to win races and championships under the new regulations, and the signs, so far, point more toward Mercedes than his current home. And at the center of this potential turnaround, a silent figure is beginning to become a key player in the equation: George Russell. The Brit, who has occupied the cockpit that was Valtteri Bottas's alongside Lewis Hamilton since 2022, may be experiencing the most difficult season of his career since his Formula One debut. And the most curious detail, Russell himself seems to know this. In a recent interview, the driver made it clear that he would like to end his contract early and asked the team for a resolution before the European summer break. In other words, he wants guarantees. Russell knows his current deal expires at the end of 2025 and that no renewal has been signed yet. Meanwhile, Toto Wolff talks about calmly analyzing all possibilities, which, in paddock parlance, is almost a euphemism for, "We're waiting to see what Max decides." Before I continue, like and subscribe to the channel so the YouTube algorithm recommends this video, and let's get started. And here comes a classic dilemma. Despite his talent, Russell has yet to establish himself as Mercedes' undisputed leader. His performance has been solid, but without any major highlights, and his relationship with Hamilton, while calm behind the scenes, has not favored him politically. With Lewis's departure, Russell was expected to assume the role of man of the house, with authority. But the climate of uncertainty, coupled with the lack of impressive results in 2024 and 2025, left room for the team to consider more aggressive alternatives, like Verstappen. And as contradictory as it may seem, the Dutchman's potential arrival could harm as much as benefit Russell. If Max takes the seat that would naturally be his, the Brit may be forced to look for a spot elsewhere, something that wouldn't be easy, given the current grid composition. However, there's also the possibility that Mercedes will retain both drivers, forming one of the most explosive pairings in the sport's recent history. Jenson Button even told as.com that he would love to see Russell and Verstappen together. It would be fascinating to watch the dynamic between them in a team like Mercedes, declared the 2009 world champion. But is Mercedes really interested in managing two alphas at the same time? Toto Wolff has already demonstrated an aversion to internal conflicts like those between Hamilton and Rosberg, and has always prioritized balance in the workplace. Bringing in Verstappen would be a clear statement of ambition, but keeping Russell at his side would require much tighter management of egos, strategies, and internal politics. And it's worth remembering, there's also the Kimi Antonelli factor. If Verstappen goes to Mercedes and Russell stays, Antonelli could be loaned to Alpine. But if Russell leaves, the seat would become free, and then the transition plan with Antonelli as the driver gains momentum. The young Italian, considered a new generation prodigy within Mercedes, has been groomed for years to take one of the German team's starting positions. But with the landscape changing with each race, Mercedes needs to act strategically, and a new plan is gaining momentum behind the scenes. Loan Antonelli to Alpine in 2026 as a temporary home, until the dust settles on the driver market and the permanent seat is ready for him in Brackley. And this story, as unusual as it may seem, is already being circulated by reliable sources in the paddock. The bomb came from the Italian press, more precisely from according to La Gazzetta dello Sport. Mercedes has already initiated talks with Alpine, a team that, it's worth noting, will be supplied by Mercedes engines starting in 2026. In other words, there's already a technical connection between the two teams, and this partnership would pave the perfect path for Antonelli to make his official debut as a driver in a mid-tier factory team, but with cutting-edge technological support. What would be a strategic loan move could, in practice, serve as a year of adaptation, testing, visibility, and evaluation. Flavio Briatore, Alpine's new sporting advisor, met with Toto Wolff in the Austrian GP paddock, and this meeting reignited the rumors. Inside sources claim that one of the central topics of the meeting was Antonelli's future. Briatore, who has a history of handling young talent, he was the one who launched Fernando Alonso into F1, for example, was reportedly receptive to the idea, as long as there were guarantees that Antonelli would have technical support and freedom to develop within Alpine. The French team, currently undergoing a restructuring process after years of frustration, would see Antonelli's arrival as a sign of a new era. In addition to benefiting politically from the alliance with Mercedes, its future engine supplier. But tell me, what did you think of this video? Leave a comment below. I'd love to hear your opinion, and be sure to like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss a thing.